So I came out here to do a little video about tripods, the little flexible ones, and the weather's just weird. These clouds are crazy, and you can feel raindrops coming down just over here next to my driveway. It's warm right here and it's freezing over there where the wind's blowing. Crazy stuff. Interesting clouds. Okay, so what I have here are two what appear to be identical little flexible tripods. They're the kind that you can wrap around just about anything. Recently I sat on this one and broke off one of the legs. Well, actually just unsnapped one of the legs, and we went back a couple days later and found the leg where I'd sat on it, and I popped it back in. I haven't had to use any glue. I haven't had to do anything to it. I popped it back in. It still seems to be resistant enough to hold the position because it's just friction that holds these things use to hold their position. I've had this for about 3 years. I use it, well, I would say all the time, but I use it every couple of weeks at least for something. And I've wrapped around all kinds of really cool stuff, and it works great. And it's been a really good tool. This thing has lasted for a really long time. I'm shocked because I thought for sure these things would stop resisting and therefore go freewheel on me, and it wouldn't work, because it has to hold its position in order to work for what it does. But I was pleasantly surprised. So I broke the leg on this, and now I got this one for Christmas, kind of as a stocking stuffer, and it looks very similar. The first way you can tell the difference is the older one, the one that I paid $14 for, has a ring on it that allows this to lock, so that the top piece won't come off. This one has no such lock. It just has the button, and the little top piece comes off. I pulled this out of the container, and one of the legs snapped, almost in exactly the same spot this did. I've tried pushing them back together, and they did not go. I had to use hot glue to glue it back together. That was in one of my videos. Now, I can tell you just by maneuvering this, yes, it freezes in place, but it doesn't have near the resistance that this has. And it doesn't have a little locking mechanism. And also it's a more dull plastic, which I really don't care about that part. This is a much cheaper design. I just don't feel this lasting like the other one has, because some of these have more resistance than the others. And they will move a lot and then a very little bit, a lot and then a very little bit. It's very uneven friction. Having looked at the guts of these things, I wish I'd still had them apart, to be honest with you, so I could show you the guts. The older one with the ring has more of a full ball joint configuration, whereas this one just has a ball joint, but the ball doesn't look as even. It looks like it was just made in a mold and they were just thrown together. The difference between these two in cost, the one that I like, the one that was older, the one that was about $15, this one was something like $6, the cheaper one, without the ring, without the locking ring. And this is going to put me on a rant about, just for information purposes, this is the tripod I was using to hold the camera while shooting the video about tripods. So this, it used to be back in the 50s when my grandfather was coming up, my father was coming up, my grandfather was a father of young children, that stuff made in Japan was crap. Everything that came out of Japan after World War II was junk. It was just thrown together. They were just learning how to do the whole mass manufacturing thing, because before that they had artisans, much like the US did. And everything that came out of Japan was junk. Well, we're at that stage right now with China. I think this is greatly accelerated with China. This, I'm sure, is a Chinese knockoff of this, which is a much better product. Now, it's almost 3 times the cost, but I'll be honest with you, the more expensive one in this case is definitely worth it. However, would I be able to say the same in 5 or 10 years? They're only going to get better at manufacturing. Now, there's another problem. China is starting to flex its muscles militarily, not just in its own territory, but it's trying to manipulate bits and pieces of the world outside of its area of influence that it had many years ago. It's developing a navy. There's a largest aircraft carrier in the world on the design board, ready to come up, that China's trying to put together. They've purchased a lot of equipment from people. They've hardened their submarine bases so that they're not quite nuclear resistant, but they're close to it. Normal bombardment they would withstand. it smells a lot like China's preparing for war. I just read the other day that Chinese pilots get more flight time than American pilots do, combat pilots. And I believe it, because we've had so many cutbacks in this country. The United States has depended on air superiority and just having superior technology for so long that if we go into a direct fight right now, we're going to get our asses kicked, because we just haven't kept that up. It took a lot of resources to keep that going for a lot of years. And we're not spending the resources right now, so guess what? We don't have the preparedness we used to. Now, let's go back to these two items here. I don't know where this other one was made. For all I know, it was made in China and just happens to be superior because the people who designed it followed it through the mechanism, and this other one is just a bad copy. Maybe that's all that's going on here. But I'm telling you, the bad one, the one I would consider not very good, is still passable. It still works for a small camera. It still does the job, kind of, and they're almost there. This only has to be about 2 or 3 notches better to be right on par with the original design tripod that I've got there. This is just one example. It's going to be an interesting next 30 years. Someone else is going to have to be the world's cop. That's all there is to it. I don't see any other country doing it, because no one else has that enforcement of the freedom of the world. People should have freedoms. Everything becomes a human right, then nothing is a human right. Europe has been real big on bitching about everyone else not playing by the rules, and then they turn around and don't play by the rules, and then they're the ones who come up with all these rules for everyone to follow, and then they don't follow them, and it's just shit's gonna fall apart in the next few decades. I don't know how long it's going to take. It's hard for me to follow through on a political rant, having just these two little guys to use as a basis. But I don't know. Tell me what you think out there. What's going to happen over the next years? Who's going to be the next one to flip their shit and cause a world war? I want to hear the details. Is it going to start and follow through? Is it going to be North Korea? Is Iran gonna finally nuke Israel? What the hell's gonna go on? Iran makes cars, and from what I understand, they're not horrible. They're actually half decent little cars. Anyway, let me know. Okay.